Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that every clock on Earth has vanished. No time on your phone, no watch on your wrist, no alarms, no countdowns, no calendar notifications, nothing. Just sunlight creeping through your window, the changing color of the sky, the feeling of hunger, the feeling of tiredness. At first, it sounds almost peaceful, like being released from something. A slower life, a quieter life, a life with a little more room inside it. But after a few days, something strange would happen. You'd keep reaching for the time, not because you needed it, because you've become used to seeing reality through it. And that raises a question that sounds simple until you really think about it. If clocks are something humans invented, why do they feel more real than time itself? Because the truth is, for most of human history, people didn't experience time the way we do now, not even close. And understanding what changed reveals something much deeper than the history of clocks. It reveals how a tool we created slowly began changing the way we experience life. The first thing to understand is that time and clocks are not the same thing. Time existed long before clocks. The earth rotated, the seasons changed, people were born, people grew old. What clocks measure is not time itself. They measure a system humans created to track it, and for hundreds of thousands of years, people lived almost entirely without that system. Life was organized around events, not hours. People woke when the sun rose, worked when conditions were right, rested when darkness arrived. A farmer didn't need to know it was 6:37 in the morning. He needed to know whether the soil was ready. A fisherman didn't leave because a clock said so. He left because the tide changed. Time wasn't something standing outside life. Time was woven directly into experience. That may sound like a small difference. It isn't, because the moment you begin measuring something, your relationship with it changes. Think about your breathing. A moment ago, you probably weren't paying attention to it. Now you are. Nothing changed except your awareness. Something similar happened with time. Once humans learned to measure it with increasing precision, we stopped simply living inside it. We started watching it. The shift happened gradually. The first mechanical clocks appeared in medieval Europe. Most people didn't own them. They sat on church towers and public buildings. Their bells echoed across entire towns. For the first time, large groups of people could organize themselves around the same invisible rhythm. Not the weather, not the seasons, a machine. Historian Lewis Mumford once argued that the most important machine of the industrial age wasn't the steam engine, it was the clock. Because before factories could synchronize machines, clocks had to synchronize people. And that idea changed everything. The Industrial Revolution demanded precision. Factories ran on schedules, trains ran on schedules, production ran on schedules. Minutes suddenly mattered, then seconds mattered. And over time, people stopped adapting themselves to natural rhythms. They adapted themselves to mechanical ones. The clock moved from the town square into the pocket, from the pocket onto the wrist, and eventually into every corner of daily life. Today, many of us check the time dozens of times a day without even thinking about it. And every glance carries a hidden question. How much have I done? How much is left? Am I behind? Am I wasting time? That's where this story stops being about clocks and starts becoming about us, because humans possess a remarkable ability. We can mentally travel through time. Neuroscientists have found that the same brain systems involved in remembering the past are also involved in imagining the future. In other words, the machinery that helps you remember yesterday also helps you picture tomorrow. Most animals seem largely anchored to the present. Humans are different. We're constantly replaying the past, planning the future, predicting outcomes, imagining possibilities. The clock didn't create that ability, but it amplified it. Because once time becomes visible, the future becomes visible too. Every number on a clock becomes a comparison. Where am I? Where should I be? How much time remains? Am I falling behind? The strange thing is that many people feel this pressure even when no real deadline exists. You can be sitting on your couch on a quiet afternoon with nothing urgent to do and still feel guilty, still feel like you should be doing something. The clock doesn't create that feeling, but it gives it a shape. It gives it numbers, and numbers have a strange authority. They feel objective, final, difficult to argue with. That's why modern life often feels like a race without a finish line. There's always another task, another goal, another deadline, another reminder that time is passing, and slowly a subtle shift occurs. The question changes from what needs to happen today to how much can I fit into today. The wording is slightly different, the mindset is completely different, and that's where one of the deepest tensions of modern life appears. There are really two kinds of time. The first is measured time, the time of clocks, schedules, calendars, deadlines. The kind civilization depends on. Hospitals need it, airplanes need it, global communication depends on it. Measured time is incredibly useful, but there is another kind, the time we actually experience. Psychologists call it subjective time, the strange world where an hour can disappear in what feels like minutes, or a single minute can feel endless. The world where childhood summers seem to last forever, and entire decades of adulthood seem to vanish. Research suggests that the brain doesn't experience time the way a clock does. It experiences novelty, emotion, attention. That's one reason childhood often feels longer when we look back. Everything was new, everything demanded attention, everything left a memory. As adults, routines take over, days blur together, and suddenly years disappear. The clock says both periods lasted the same amount of time. Your mind disagrees, which means something important. Humans don't actually live inside clock time. We live inside felt time. The clock measures duration, the mind measures meaning, and those are not the same thing. In fact, some of the most important moments in life make no sense from the perspective of efficiency. A conversation that lasts hours longer than planned, a walk with no destination, watching the sunset, sitting with a friend who's struggling. None of these moments are productive, yet they often become the moments people remember most. Because memory doesn't organize itself around efficiency, it organizes itself around meaning. Nobody looks back on life and treasures a perfectly optimized Tuesday. They remember faces, voices, places, a childhood home, a friend's laugh, a final goodbye they didn't know was the last. The moments that remain are rarely the moments that produce the most. They're the moments that meant the most. And perhaps that's the hidden truth inside the history of the clock. The clock is one of humanity's greatest inventions, but every tool changes the person using it. A map changes how you see a landscape. A camera changes how you see a memory. And a clock changes how you see a life. It teaches precision, coordination, prediction, control, but it also encourages us to see life as something countable. And some of the most important parts of being alive refuse to be counted: love, wonder, beauty, presence, meaning. You can measure how long they lasted. You cannot measure what they were worth. Maybe that's why so many people feel pulled in two directions. Part of us still belongs to the ancient world that shaped our species, the world of long conversations, slow walks, waiting, watching rain, living through rhythms rather than schedules. and another part of us lives inside reminders, alarms, deadlines, and digital countdowns. Neither world is wrong. The tension comes from trying to be a biological creature living inside a mathematical system. Sometimes the system becomes so loud that we forget the creature. We forget what slowness feels like. We forget what boredom feels like. We forget that not every moment has to justify itself. And maybe that's the strangest thing about clocks. They don't just measure time. Over centuries, they slowly began measuring us. Our productivity, our punctuality, our efficiency, sometimes even our value. And somewhere along the way, many of us started confusing the measurement with the thing being measured. But a clock is not time, just as a map is not a landscape, and a schedule is not a life. Long before clocks existed, people sat beneath the stars wondering who they were. They fell in love. They told stories. They laughed. They grieved. They searched for meaning. And long after we're gone, clocks will probably keep ticking, measuring every second with incredible precision, but they will never know what any of those seconds meant. Only people can do that, which means the most important question was never, "What time is it?" The more important question is this: when this moment becomes a memory, what will remain? Because no clock, no matter how precise, has ever been able to measure the value of a moment, only the length of it.